Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. Might as well start putting that straight in the title. Today is Monday, January 31st. I'm still trying to train my sleep schedule so that I stream at early times instead of incredibly late times. We've got another notification here. When players receive 10,000 or more gems as a mission reward in bulk, while they have exceeded the inventory limit of gems, 10,000 gems are sent to the gift box at once. In this situation, some players cannot receive gems unless they reduce their own gems to 0. In order to address the above, we're planning to change the system as follows during future maintenance. Gems currently in the gift box will be divided into several chunks in the future. When gems that exceed the maximum capacity are sent in the gift boxes, gems will be delivered in different batches. Well, still not really sure how you get gems as gift boxes unless that's just gifts from friends. We have another issue that's also been added here. Issue 5. The game ends when viewing an opponent's deck in a favorite replay. We will check the gift box to just see there's nothing here. I've been playing Fallout 3 more this weekend, so I really didn't do a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't think I did any this weekend, which means maybe I've missed some dailies here. Duel and solo mode 3 times. Destroy a card in ranked duel, and spectate a game. Well, since I have like 2 hours and the stream will probably take longer than that, we probably should be careful and just get through those quests real quick. So we know in spectate mode we can cheat by making it go fast forward. In solo mode, can we cheat by surrendering? Does that count as a duel? I mean, even if it didn't count as a duel, it kind of wouldn't matter because I could easily jump into a duel in solo mode and just let the person defeat me very easily. In fact, it might be easier to lose in a duel than it would be to even do the practice solo mode duels, if those counted, and those only take 1 step to win. Today is either the end of the ranked playing, so I probably won't get any higher, or yesterday was the end of the ranked playing. Yeah, my internet's still having trouble also, and it's a nightmare, to say the least. And yeah, I don't think I'll be sticking with this new ISP. Maybe I'll stick with them until the end of the first year contract, but like, I'm not sure I'm even gonna stick that long. Like, there's been just a blatant lack of success in fixing this problem, and with my previous ISP, sure, so things might have gone down for a weekend, but for an entire week, never. That's unheard of. And even if I could complain to my ISP and get like credited back for a week of poor service, like, that's still not acceptable. Well, I may have enjoyed the faster speeds. I don't particularly need the faster speeds. One thing about internet that is still rolling around in my head is, how would I ever like get to the point of watching 4K content? I think this is a question that anybody who's an audio file or video file, particularly I guess a video file, thinks, is because there's just like less and less 4K content coming out in Blu-rays, or less and less Blu-rays coming out in general. Sure, you could stream 4K content in some very rare cases, but it's not a big selection. I was very surprised to hear that there was a remastered version, not in 4K, but just remastered of Babylon 5, and instead of releasing it on Blu-ray or anything, they just released it on streaming on HBO Max, and I didn't even hear about it. So, I mean, I guess that is the first example that I've heard of potential remasters going straight to streaming services. And there is definitely an argument that if people are watching the old versions of shows on streaming services, is it really worth it to remaster in the first place? Or can you just continue to sell the same old product? Alright. So I'll pick this one. We'll pick this duel. Actually, let's not pick this duel. What I want to do is find a duel that I can play with my Exodia deck, and that way I can like potentially summon Exodia on the first try. Otherwise I can just end the turn. Alright, so the first thing you would do is you just surrender here. This would be the fastest motion, is to see if that counts as dueling in solo mode. And you can see I have 1 hour left to have gotten another login bonus, so I did definitely miss it. That did not count. Alright. As for Fallout 3, there's really not a ton of stuff to say, but I will say I'm kind of struggling to do the last couple of the locations in the main overworld map of Fallout 3. What has been happening kind of perniciously lately is that I will run into a named character and maybe they'll talk to me and walk away, and then they'll be attacked by a ravenous monster. I think it's probably because I've leveled up. The enemies in the overworld potentially have like, yeah, maybe because I've leveled up, the enemies in the overworld have leveled up, and now they're just killing characters. So there's just like 2 or 3 times where I've walked into places and I've just found corpses of named human characters. There are some situations where I think that is probably supposed to be the way it goes, and you are just supposed to find some corpses laying around after a battle fight. It's very inconsistent, like everything else that is inconsistent in Fallout 3. But it does kind of feel like those are scripted things. Probably would have been nicer if I walked into a building and saw that they were in the middle of a battlefield and then saw them quickly die before I could get around to rescuing them. But Yeah. It just doesn't seem like that's quite gonna happen. Let's see if this works. I don't know why I'm really even trying to play here. Yeah. Otherwise, there's not a lot going on in Fallout 3. It does kind of feel like they are it kind of feels like I'm just wrapping up some stuff. Oddly, there's a lot of areas I've visited in this second playthrough that I never saw in the first playthrough. I've nearly collected all the bobbleheads. I would be fairly irritated if I didn't get all the bobbleheads at this rate. I'm at level like 24 of 30 max level, so I wouldn't be surprised if I hit the max level as I'm wrapping up the main story, and all the DLC I'll just be at max level. I still have yet to move the main story far enough ahead though to get power armor training. So let's just get this over with. If I was gonna have any chance of success, I would do this. Summon this out. And that'll end me because he'll just attack with this character on this. I've had to say it quite a bit while covering Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition that it really just feels like an unfinished game. There's really no other way to get around it or highlight it. It just feels like there's very discrete teams working on the project, and there was no real leadership or consistent thought and story aesthetic or level design aesthetic. Everything feels a little bit off, and far too many things feel just completely unimportant, like insanely unimportant. Okay. There's been a lot of dungeons, a lot of places where you've walked in and I've cleared the whole place out, just killing everybody, and at best sometimes you just get a book, or sometimes you just get a gun that's a named gun, and there's just no RPG quest for this being an RPG game that really synergize into that idea and give you a quest or reason to go into a lot of the locations, a lot of the dungeons, or try and collect specific named guns. Almost all of my stats are at 100% already, and what isn't at 100% is going to quickly become 100% by the time I get to level 30. There's nothing I can do with this card. So it is just increasingly getting more difficult to find the fun. And my concern, and it's probably not a very valid concern, definitely would be that I move into a game like Ni no Kuni and all of a sudden I'm grinding and doing very similar things to Fallout 3. It's just, it would be a JRPG, so it might be even more grindy at that point. Let's see. I don't mind actually winning here too, if I can pull that off. Which I kind of can, if I can survive 3 turns. Because every turn now is going to be this annoying long turn. Where we're going to activate this, and then we're going to draw a card from our deck. Then we're going to activate this, and we're going to draw a card from our deck. We're not going to activate this one. We're going to keep doing that until we get an Exodia piece. Just summon up here. Oh, I just won. Well, by all means, take a victory and move forward. It would have been 2 more turns before I would have gotten Exodia. That gave me a card. And these are all duels that I really should have done like off screen over the weekend, and I'll probably struggle to find a good point. Oh, I see Salad Al Moki, if I pronounced that wrong, apologies, I probably did, saying hi and hello. The chat is a little delayed, and in all truthfulness, I have had so few people on chat in the past month or 2, I've fallen out of habit of even looking at it, but I do see it now. So, hello, I do see you. So, maybe this is the right time for Monday, particularly, to stream. I imagine a lot of people are just getting back into some level of normalcy in their lives as far as the whole Christmas holiday and just recovering from Christmas holidays for all of January. Alright, we can go ahead and special summon this in attack position, and we can go ahead and stick this here too. So when this attacks, it's gonna toss a Exodia piece, and that's gonna give it 1,000 extra attack. If it tosses all 5 of the Exodia pieces in the graveyard, you win the game automatically. Although, in all honesty, by the time you could attack 5 times with this, you almost certainly would have done 8,000 life points of damage anyways. So, this card only makes sense if it is attacking some things that are like way at a different scale. Let's see. Can't really do anything here. I think your best bet is to just change these to defense positions. See, bringing this guy to the field just brings the Exodia card back into the hand as well as everything else into the deck. As far as the accountability section, do I have anything else to talk about? Because there really is not a lot to say about Fallout 3. And yeah, Duel Masters, I'm checking practically every day to try and see when the mobile version of the game would come to Android. Alright. Let's see. Put that in attack position. Switch that to attack position. Toss that. And take some damage. Toss that. And take a little less damage. Next 2 turns, I could toss 2 more pieces. And then the turn after, the next turn, I could toss 2 more pieces. And I'd only have to toss 1 and I'd actually win. So yeah, if you could theoretically get 3 of these on the field at once, and then attack, you would win in like 2 turns. But this one only tosses something to the graveyard when it declares attack, so it's not when it comes in conflict with something. And we'll just have to see how stupid the AI may be if it does something here to really not attack these and destroy these. We've got kind of a considerable amount of games that, because I was having real trouble. Yeah, I was having some real trouble with the macro for some reason. Notice this guy gets banished when he dies. Okay, what do we want? Yeah, if I summon this, then activate this, and then destroy this card, and then special summon that, which I didn't realize I was going to be able to do that. because there's exactly 5 dark cards. And then that lets me add cards to my deck. Let's start with that one. Let's do this. It's gonna bring this guy back. Which, fine, we'll toss another thing and continue the attack. And then we'll do this. So we have 3 out of the 5 Exodia pieces in the graveyard, which means we probably won't get all 5 of the 5 Exodia pieces in the graveyard, but if we get the other Exodia card that then starts to bring things out of the graveyard, I could get that back, although not particularly fast. Here we have a multiplayer social horror game that's online PvP that was on my fall list, and you can see it's not really relevant and it never really came out of early access. And they just summoned a 4,000 card and it cleared the field. Which, whatever. I didn't need to win, I just needed to play 3 solo games. It is going to be fairly irritating to have daily quests like that. Alright. Now we have an hour to destroy 5 cards in Ranked Duel and Duel and Ranked Duel once. And that will be easy enough to do. We still are silver tier 1. So let's start playing for real. Let's see. This game needs more time. This game needs more time. This game, I think we'll have to say no to since it came out in 2018 and is still in early access. It definitely looks like a Mario game, but clearly it didn't get finished. So that goes. Here we have a game that needs more time. I'm giving things that came out in 2021 more time, although I should consider getting rid of some of them. Cooperative game here. Yeah, if this game is so cooperative focused, I think I have to say no to it. Plus, this doesn't really look that interesting. So we'll take that off the follow list. And I have to remember to actually play, or I'm going to set myself up. We don't want 2 of these on the field at once. Let's see. And in the turn. This game looks like a skating game. I'm gonna give it some more time. If anything, when I'm saying I'm gonna give it some more time at this point, I'm just saying I'm not gonna spend the mental energy to consider the game at this moment, which is fine because we're going through so many of these games anyways that it doesn't really matter. Here you have what looks like a Metroidvania game with kind of a cutesy look to it. 95% positive with 20 users reviewed. Yeah. I feel like, well, this might be a hidden gem in the rough. It may just be also nothing. And it just doesn't have relevance, and I have so many games at this point that I can just be fairly arbitrary and get rid of something. Like this one also came out in July of 21 and has no user reviews, so obviously we can get rid of that. This one came out in 2020 and has not 30 user reviews, so we can get rid of that. This one came out in 2020 and has 3 user views, so we can get rid of that. Just be really cool. And, you know, if I get really desperate for more games, I could always go through every single game on Steam if necessary. As crazy as that might seem. If somehow I purchased and played the 2,000 or 3,000 games on my wish list already, yeah, I could certainly waste a lot of time doing that. This one does deserve a little bit more time, though. Madness Project Nexus. That's overwhelmingly positive. Single player focused. Project Nexus 2. I guess the question would be what it was Project Nexus 1. Arena shooter with gun customization. You know, even looking at this though, I still don't think I'm certain I want to play this game. Maybe I just don't want to play arena shooters. I'm just going to leave that on the follow list. This one I'll give a little bit more time to. I really am not even particularly partial to first-person shooters. This guy's taking forever, which is, I guess, fine. Then we have a VR movie that I guess needs some more time. Here we have a Diablo clone, which probably has run out of time at this point. So we'll get rid of that. Mad Experiments is a walking simulator, escape the room. Is it VR only? No, it doesn't even support VR. I don't know if I really would bother to ever play an escape room game, but it's following the requirements to make it to the wish list. This guy is still playing the same turn, which I think really highlights how you can kind of cheat here and let the clock not run out and still spend a lot of time. Okay. All I can do is add this to my hand and then summon this and then lose anyways. May 2021. I'll give this a little bit more time. Act 1. 2D point and click adventure. The question here would be, is there an Act 2? No. So I can't leave the follow list until there is an Act 2. Seems to be a collection of puzzle games. Alright. So if he's gonna counter this ritual summoning, we'll just activate a spell and then end our turn. Yeah, in a lot of ways this may be just slightly off of what a hidden object game is, but every screenshot here is not showing any kind of hidden object gameplay, so I'm not directly burned out on that, those ideas. So I'll put that on the wish list. Here we have a mixed reviewed game. That's some kind of action RPG, which we can get rid of that then. Here we have something that looks like a very old game, like a Nintendo 64 game, which arguably, yeah, something that was made in 2017 to look like Mario 64. I think it has too much of an uphill battle as far as quality of games. This is $1.99 too. It's rated very positively, however. So I guess it's cheap enough to make it to the wish list, although figuring out, considering things, prices, to put it on the wish list is something I tend not to like to do. And since I didn't play over the weekend, I'm still at like rank 61, but that doesn't really matter one bit. I'm perfectly fine as far as the battle pass. Right, this game came out in October, so I'll give it some more time. Yeah, there's like 3 sections here of follow list games to look at. There's a fan VR game of Code Lyoko, a weird Canadian cartoon, which probably won't have relevancy, but I'll give it some more time. This has only 2 reviews, so it's obviously not relevant, so we'll take that off. Lust for Darkness VR Im Edition. Oddly, only 9 reviews even for that, although it did just come out in November. Like, I almost assume the reason there aren't a lot of people that went with the Im Edition is because the Im Edition, I think, may be actually the censored version of it. Or if you bought Lust for Darkness, you would have gotten the other version of the game. All right. Let's activate this. We're gonna special summon this by tribute summoning this in a face-up attack position, and then we're going to ritual summon a monster next time we can summon something. Yeah, I'm kind of thoroughly confused here as to how this is all supposed to play out. special summon this. Sacrifice that. Face up attack position. Destroy a card. Go into battle phase. See, the thing here is the Lust for Darkness VR non-Im edition is marked as adults only. And then it obviously came out earlier, October 26, 2021. And then the Im edition here is coming out February 10th, so it's not even out yet. And this is the new M-rated cut, but it's not marked adults only. This edition is tailored to the preferences of players who love the game of Lovecraftian horror for its mystery, narrative, and atmosphere rather than explicit content. So the M-rated edition is the edited edition coming after the fact, which I kind of love that as a concept, but the actual implementation and explanation of that is lacking some detail. Like, that's confusing to say the least. See how this goes. And that certainly is a weird position, I would say, for me personally, because I guess if actually no, I'm looking at Lust from Beyond Im edition, not Lust from Darkness Im edition. I started and went in circles here. Yeah. And this one requires VR, so it's even more confused. Like, so this is a VR version of the game. Like, it's a VR version of the game. Then it's an M-rated edition on top of that. So I couldn't even, as a YouTuber, buy this game and then cover it and play it, and then be happy to not have to do a whole bunch of censorship. And that's kind of the only reason why a game like this really should exist at all. Because you really can't have two different versions of a game and then actually believe that somehow people won't hear about the uncensored version of the game. Or accidentally stumble upon the uncensored version of the game. There we got a couple of rewards. And level up. This is an old card. One more gold, one more win to gold, and I'd be happy for that victory. Yeah. The whole thing is confused, to say the least. But yeah, the Lust for Darkness VR Im edition contains blood, gore, and violence. No sexual content whatsoever. Which the developer of the VR versions of this is not the developers of the regular game. And so that then also confuses it. The developers of the regular game only have Lust for Darkness and yeah, I actually have that in my library. It's also mixed reviewed in all honesty, so I feel like there's probably some complaints out there. Let's go in that turn. Yeah, it's 68% positive, although it's 81% positive in the last 30 days. And there is no like version of the game. Metacritic gave it like a 50. So yeah, they've really just been all over the place. Movie Games Lunarium, which I don't even know if that was the name of the company originally. It feels like they may have changed it. But yeah, that seems like they're really inconsistent in what they're even trying to do. Anyways, we have this next game, Lurk in the Darkness Prologue, which is a prologue. Looks like it's a horror game that is very well received, but it's a free-to-play prologue, so I don't think there's a need to have this on the follow list. Like, what is this DLC for the prologue? This DLC is nothing at all, and it's mixed reviewed. Yeah, I think I have to take prologues off the follow list, even if they are slightly interesting looking games that may come from them at some point. Here we have a fishing game that looks like a mobile game called Luna's Fishing Garden. It's overwhelmingly positive, so I think we'll say yes to this, even though it does look like a cell phone port. That's not even particularly surprising for a fishing game, so I'll put that on the wish list. Lumberjacks Dynasty, mostly positive, playing as a lumberjack. I'm not gonna think about this game, actually. Like, on one hand, I feel like I could maybe get into the idea of playing with the big rigs of a lumberjack and all that specialized equipment. On the other hand, it could just be really annoying garbage. Alright. Tribute to Monster Hand of Field Shuffle. Alright. I'm just doing everything wrong here. Yeah, I just screwed up completely. I needed to have summoned this and seen if I could spend 2,000 to destroy everything on the field, but I didn't. This game Lumberjack doesn't look like anything interesting. I don't even know why it made it to the fall list. Lumberjack is not out yet, so it shouldn't be on the fall list. Lullaby Days does have enough reviews, as I believe this is a daughter raising simulator game like Princess Maker. Yeah, we put this on the fall list just a couple days ago, and we're already back around and we see it's mostly positive, so I almost should give it more time just for that reason. Lucy Dreaming looks interesting, but it doesn't have a release date, so let's take that off the fall list. But, we're not just going to go through fall list games this entire stream, but there's some of that, certainly. This guy is not playing, so he might surrender. That, like, the joke here is he might surrender and I might win, even though I have no reason which I should be able to win. Let's see. Let's keep on dueling. Here we have a game called Marmoset, which I guess we'll leave on the fall list, give it a little bit more time. Here we have a weird, tagged as FMV game. It's rated very positively, and a point-and-click adventure game with FMV is a weird thought, certainly, so I'll put that there. It's also a free game, so it probably was like a student project or something. Seems like it was kickstarted and then put on Steam for free. You know, we don't get that a lot, really. Kickstarter really has stopped being a thing anybody's even talking about. Yes, there are still projects on it, but it stopped being a fad. And the idea of people potentially kickstarting and funding something through Kickstarter or some other service like Fig or similar services, that concept has completely gone away. If anything, the only last remnants of that would be a game developer potentially having a Patreon and then trying to get people to support them monthly through Patreon subscriptions while they're working on a game. And even that, I don't think, is happening that often. Let's see. This game Mark's Life, I'll give more time, but I could also probably just dismiss it. This game Marifusa seems to be anime girls and doing a tower defense thing very colorfully. It's rated very positively, $6.79, and then all Japanese or Chinese text on this DLC. This game contains nude scenes, so I assume that's what people are happy about. But I do have to admit, this is exactly the kind of game I would want to see as far as adult content games. Something that I could review that has a lot of gameplay mechanics and thought around those gameplay mechanics first, and then just happens to fairly naturally have adult content in it. Whereas what we often see is a very different situation where we are playing terrible games with terrible gameplay mechanics, or games that barely have any gameplay mechanics at all, and then getting an extremely minimal amount of adult content, so it fails to satisfy on any factor. This game, Marble Razor's Wrath, I guess I'll give it some more time. Marble World, on the other hand, is rated very positively. I don't know if this is a game I'd really want to buy or play, but it does follow the rules. It has more than 30 reviews. It's still early access though, so it stays on the follow list. Mandingo, I'll give some more time to. Here we have one, My Mia. Looks like a visual novel. It's rated positive. Maybe at some point I need to be even more critical on visual novels. $17.99, English, Japanese. You know, a reckoning may just come one day where I do specifically go through the wish list and get rid of all of the visual novels and just say that's not a category I'm gonna really have time to ever play. You have some pretty rough looking pinball games. By the way, Pinball FX, not the old Pinball FX but the new Pinball FX, this is several tables, not Pinball FX 3 but Pinball FX as a reboot replacing Pinball FX. That is going to be out fairly soon using new engines and ray tracing and generally just trying to do a better job at emulating pinball. Although, from what I've seen of it as it's being teased, there is a lot of non-pinball stuff that's always been around the edges of Pinball FX, and it doesn't seem like they're getting anywhere away from that concept. They're adding lobbies, they're adding 3D model collectibles, they're spending a lot of time and energy making content that is not just accurately recreating the game. And one of their tables that they're going to come out with for Pinball FX is an Indiana Jones table. And you'd think, great, so they're going to be emulating the old Indiana Jones table with the Ark of the Covenant in the middle of the center lane shot. No, they've made a completely different Indiana Jones table for some reason. And it still has the weird 3D models on the edges that jump around the table, as we've seen in other Pinball FX tables. They're always just trying to get that new young audience, and I don't think you get a new young audience willing to like and play pinball by making something that's not pinball. On that same line, somebody has made a game that is basically Guitar Hero with what the semblance of playing pinball on top of it, but you're not focusing as the main priority around the idea of actually playing pinball, so the whole thing feels very weird. Here we have a game on Steam called Malian, which is a weird horror game, but I think it might be a multiplayer horror game. $3.99, single player and on co-op. Yeah, it says a co-op horror survival game for 1 to 4 players. Yeah. There's a lot of weird models and weirdness here, but I almost can't blame somebody for making a horror game with a lot of weirdness. Weirdness equals horror in a lot of cases. I guess I'm going to leave this one on the fall list again, just don't want to think about it. Then mail mall express deliveries, unless it's in early access, can make it to the wish list. 3D platformer collectathon. Yeah, I can't do anything anyway, so I'll end the turn. Alright, let's cover the actual news here. I think we had already talked about this. Certain Affinity may be working on a new Halo Infinite mode as well as an Xbox Monster Hunter clone. So this should be the new news. From Software hasn't intentionally made Elden Ring easier, but it expects more players to finish it. Which that seems like you're effectively talking out of the sides of your mouth, or that they're actually saying that Elden Ring will be shorter than what other Dark Souls style games have been. There could be also more of a case where Elden Ring has the ability for you to finish the game fairly early, maybe in a Zelda Breath of the Wild style, where, if I recall correctly, Zelda Breath of the Wild could be beaten without defeating any of the legendary divine beasts, but it would be way easier to, if you did defeat, I think they were called legendary divine beasts first. Maybe they're doing something sort of like that, but almost backwards, where you can just beat the main boss regardless of fairly easily anyways. I guess inherently it comes down to what do you mean by finishing it. And it's far too early to really be too concerned about any of that. The game needs to come out, people need to review it. If you have any concern, I never felt like the Dark Souls games or the Bloodborne or anything like that. Never felt like any of those games were anywhere close to being too short. So I doubt they're gonna overcompensate and swing wildly in the other direction. If anything, as someone who didn't finish any of the, like, Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 2, whatever I played, I think it was Dark Souls 1. The fact that I didn't finish that game, I think, probably does imply that there was too much content in it and it was too difficult. Like, I don't even really finish watching speedruns of Dark Souls 1. That's how big the game is. And I've watched so many people play Dark Souls 1. I have this almost certainly false memory in my head that I actually did try and play Dark Souls on my channel. But I know I didn't, and I know I wouldn't have finished it if I had. I almost certainly would have rage quit. Moving on, Call of Duty Vanguard patch includes fixes for fortified and cold-blooded perks, whatever that means. Switch users have hacked controller pack support into Nintendo 64 games, which I guess would potentially mean you could save the game. Yeah, I guess the Switch versions of the games are using just save states, which in all fairness, save states are better than saving save files in almost every case. But the ghost data from Mario Kart 64, yeah, seems to not be something that the emulation can handle. There's also some comments here that the company could slowly be improving its much criticized Nintendo 64 emulation, and Nintendo of America's president saying that it's taking criticism of the Switch Online simulation, quote, very seriously. Although Nintendo of America's president saying anything is not speaking with much weight, as I must constantly remind people that Nintendo of America is basically just a localization house for Nintendo of Japan's games, and they don't really make any games themselves or do much other than localization and a little QA and handle business meetings. They literally speak English for the Japanese people that don't want to deal or learn to speak English or deal with speaking English. Video Games Chronicles says the WWE 2K's trailer is leaked early, although oddly this trailer video is not loading. If you want to check that out. The PlayStation 5 version of Cyberpunk seemingly spotted on PSN, hinting at an imminent release, which Cyberpunk was pulled from PlayStation 4 for a long time, and I think eventually was allowed back on the PlayStation 4. So them releasing an upgraded version probably won't change much. Apparently Star Wars Eclipse is inspired by The Last of Us. Quantic Dream's Star Wars game is going to have a mix of story and gameplay, which almost every game should have a mix of story and gameplay, so that's not really a big description. And this was the one with the trailer where it was just people playing the drums and you see a lot of characters here. Yeah, a lot of promise in this trailer, but no guarantee that any of it actually gets fulfilled. And being a Quantic Dream, it may very well be that there's very little gameplay mechanics and you are just pressing a whole bunch of QuickTime events the whole time. Quantic Dream's PS4 tech demo is reportedly coming to the PS5 as Dreamland. We had heard this story a while ago, and it seems like Video Games Chronicle is just getting around to finding out about it. And let me point out here, if you ever thought you were going to be a YouTube streamer that streamed Nintendo games, well, Nintendo has just blocked over 1,300 YouTube videos featuring its soundtracks. Music from Legend of Zelda, Super Mario, and more have been blocked. A lot of times they were claiming them for monetization, and now it seems like they are straight up just blocking. Like Nintendo of Japan definitely taking their own interpretation of copyright, even Japanese copyright, to an extreme and fanciful direction. When you consider, hey, I'm playing a Konami game right now, you'd think if anybody was going to block Konami content or copyrighted content, it would be somebody awful like Konami, but I've just had a couple of videos that have been monitored by Konami, or not monetizable by Konami. And those were not based on the audio anyways, they were based on the clips of the final victory sequence matching some video that they put up. And certainly I've covered plenty of other Japanese games. I mean, really is boiling down to there might be a few independent people there where one game is not playable. Like maybe the creator Braid still doesn't want people streaming his content. I think that was the case. But that doesn't even really matter. But if you simply don't cover Nintendo games and you don't cover the Persona company's games, then you will just have the average amount of content ID claims that every other YouTube gamer gets, which is still way too high. Like actually playing a lot of Warner Brothers games gets a lot of content ID claims. Playing a lot of Batman games does that. But very few things have ever been blocked. Or, yeah, blocked. Very, very few things have ever been blocked. Moving on, the Halo TV series trailer reveals Cortana and its release date. Suppose this looks fine as Cortana. I mean, it doesn't really look like Cortana to me because Cortana looks like a animated character, and no human character is really going to match with that very well. And clearly they're going to have Cortana talking enough that it's going to make sense to not have her face fully cartoonified or animated. I have no idea how you're going to have a Halo TV series though. I feel like a lot of these TV series are actually mini-series in disguise. Because I just don't see how you could take that to a season 3 or 4. Get to the ever wanted 100 episodes for syndication concept, which it's not even 100 episodes that are needed for syndication anymore. Video Games Chronicle has this article. The Scarlet Nexus director wants to make a, quote, more mature sequel. It's been praised for giving... Xbox Game Pass has been praised for giving the game a boost in popularity and publicity. It does seem like if this Bandai Namco game was made and it wasn't as mature a story as the creator wanted to tell, there is obviously a case there of some influence, some soft censorship being put on the creator. That's what I take from that. Of course, that may not be the case. It is possible that Scarlet Nexus 1 is the exact story he wanted to tell, and he's just saying, maybe he's just saying that he wants the story to become and evolve into a more mature story, in the way that the Harry Potter books started as a kids books, and by the time you're at the end of it, they are definitely young teens or late teen or even adult books. And another quote here, which maybe they're over focusing on this part, where he says, "If there's a sequel, I personally want to utilize the superpower theme in areas other than battles." The world and settings of the story could potentially be created to suit an even more mature audience by exploring themes like the dangers of having and using superpowers. So he's not even talking sex, he's talking intellectual concepts. And yet the title definitely implied and left it for the reader to assume that this is just lol, Japanese people are so horny, they want to turn all their video games into pornos, and that's totally not the case. So that seems like a fairly disingenuous, dishonest way to have written the headline, because let me just rewrite this headline fairly easily. You go here, exploring themes like the dangers of having or using superpowers. So you could easily say Scarlet Nexus director wants sequel to explore themes of the dangers of having a superpower, of being and that's a little warrior. So maybe you shorten that. Scarlet Nexus director wants to take sequel in a new direction, a deeper direction. Wants the game to be more intellectual. Wants to make a more intellectual sequel. Yeah, you could literally change the word mature to intellectual, and that would be more in line. Like, the only time in this quote that the word mature is even said is when he's saying it would suit a more mature audience. Also, he says he wants to improve the cutscenes and more in this article, but you know, that's really just another example of Video Games Chronicles being yet another one of these Western video game news sources that love to go for sensationalism, love to treat the Japanese games differently and worse than the rest of the world, the West world's games. And it's not just Japanese games, it's mostly Japanese games, but they don't treat Eastern games well at all. And in all fairness, I guess some of the Portuguese games never get even talked about, and Indian games and things like that barely get talked about for what few of those exist. But yeah, there is this prevalent, you have to just describe it as xenophobia that happens on a lot of mainstream Western video game sites and amongst Western video game journalists, where they are pushing a narrative instead of just reporting the news. We see that certainly in a lot of other types of news reporting too, where we have this position, we have this narrative, we're only going to report on things or report things in a way that pushes that narrative, and it just falls into the realm of propaganda and yellow journalism instead of actual news. And it just takes one bad editor-in-chief to change the headlines of the writers, the freelance writers often that they hire to accomplish that narrative very easily. Because I don't read the full articles almost ever. Most people don't read the full articles. We just read the headlines. Anyways, moving on. A Gran Turismo State of Play is coming on Wednesday. I guess we can take that as fact. Pokemon Legends Arceus UK launch was huge, even without digital sales. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that I think Video Games Chronicle is actually a UK based website, because they definitely talk about UK sales. Alright, let's see if we can possibly win here. Nope. Gonna lose. They have the first trailer for the Zelda Ocarina of Time PC port. I don't think there's a real reason to watch a trailer for a PC port that very likely will get taken down. If not the second it gets posted, before it gets posted, or several days maybe after it gets posted. Like, definitely everybody should try and grab it when the final version is released. But what would you even do with it? Because it's not like you're going to be able to stream it, and it's not like you're being a very good video game critic as far as giving buying advice if you are just playing PC ports of things that are almost certainly going to fall under the category of copyright infringement in the eyes of the law. There's an article here from Video Games Chronicles. Now even Worms is getting its own NFT. This time, though, they are saying it's going to be environmentally environmentally friendly. It's going to be connected to its own sidechain of the Ethereum mainnet, it says, whatever that means. I almost feel like what they should have done, if they were going to say they were getting into NFTs as a gag, is that would just be the collectible in a game, and it would have nothing actually to do with the blockchain. And then they could say, actually, this is 100% environmental friendly because there is no blockchain at all. And that we're just calling them NFTs to get in on the memes. Although you're probably too late even to get on the memes. In as far as NFTs. Like, I could see a Borderlands 4 come out, and then you have some bad guy that's kind of like Handsome Jack giving the good characters NFTs as a way of trying to bribe them or something, and it just being a joke, and they aren't really NFTs, they're just pictures. But people get so mad about NFTs at the moment that even making a joke of it probably wouldn't land particularly well. Adafruit kind of tried to do that. They have some t-shirts they're selling that basically say we don't make NFTs because apparently they've been asked so often, or at least they feel like they've been asked so often. And even in that case, it just, to me, came off as a bad joke that just felt a little hostile and pointless. Moving on. Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 is planned to reveal this year, the producer confirms. Hopefully part 2 is the last part, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that. And then Troy Baker has ended his partnership with the NFT forum and says sorry for the hate or create comment. The thing particularly about the backlash around this is he was working with this VoiceVerse firm that also did like non-union voice work or something like that. So not only was he potentially hurting the hurting his coworkers and friends by working with this company, he was also hurting the industry in general by just creating a lot of drama around NFTs for no good reason. Here we have a game on Steam called Fallen Spirit, which looks like some kind of VR game, but from the looks of it, it doesn't seem like there's much here. Maybe a puzzle game of some small amount. $2.99 is too cheap for a VR game. English only. These are not Flawless games, so they shouldn't be. Ancient Wars Sparta Definitive Edition. We'll put that on the fall list. Rogue Tower. It's just a tower defense game, so we'll say no to that. I am very much going to just be doing the yes-no concept. I think going forward now, always. A lot less looking at the prices of things, a lot less checking what language is supported. Apologies if that was actually vital information. Let's see. This looks like it's just a top-down space shooter. Early access, $13.49 English. Let's see. Here we have a point-and-click adventure game, which I'm a sucker for those, so I'll put that on the follow list. Well, can't do anything there. Here we have a game on Steam called Ball Frog, which looks like it's a kind of parkour. Interesting, they're claiming this is from the programmer of The Binding of Isaac, but which programmer and which Binding of Isaac? The first Binding of Isaac, or the more recent one? Was he a member of Team Nicholas, which are the developers of The Binding of Isaac? Although at a certain point, it would almost have to be the first Binding of Isaac, because you would say you were the programmer otherwise of The Binding of Isaac Rebirth instead. Well, that catches my attention, although this game really does not. So I'm going to put this on the fall list. It is frankly a little shocking that we don't have more programmers or people in general just put a game out and say that they programmed some game or worked on some game they didn't. Since so many game people don't get credited appropriately anyways, it would be fairly easy to sow enough fear, uncertainty, and doubt around whether or not somebody actually programmed a game that you could make that claim, and unless they actually are going to actively sue you, I suppose at a certain level, if you did not do any programming for the game and you said you did, you're straight up committing fraud at that point. But that seems like that would also end up in a court case. This game difficulty apparently is just a text-based game, so I'm going to say no to that. Sweet Collector. Looks like it might be a Tetris style game, so I'll give that a follow. Invasion Neo Earth. Looks like a tactic strategy game of no real interest, so no to that. Chaos Chain. Looks like it might be an RPG game, but I'm not seeing anything of interest there. Let's see. 719. You know, if I don't scroll down and check the languages, then that also pulls me away from having to point out how many of these are just awful Chinese and Russian games. There's another one of these furries and scalese games, and at this point I've sworn not to even really look at these because they come out too often, and I'm just not into furries and scalese to any major extent that I'd actually want to play a game like that. Dodge It 2 looks terrible. Back of the Giant Crab looks too much like an asset flip, which is a shame. You might have been able to do something here, but also you wouldn't just make your game solely focused around the idea of doing just a giant crab. You'd want a whole bunch of different monsters. Yeah, we already have seen a couple of kaiju games. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. Now let's do this. And let's attack here. This Plum Bun Reformatted is some weird text-based game, so that's going to be no. Last Bastion looks like half text, half strategy game. I'll give this a follow. I'd probably say no to it, but I just don't want to consider it. Here we have something called It's On You, which looks like it's an FNV game. Looks like it has to do with like gangsters, maybe UK gangsters. Let's put this on the fall list. Let's see what the reviews say later on. Here we have something called Hidden Dream, which almost certainly is a Chinese game, but I don't know if I want to immediately dismiss it. Yeah, English and Chinese. I'll give it a follow, although it doesn't even have a release date, so maybe we don't put it on the fall list until it has a release date, or actually is released. This guy's still making up his mind. Relic Adventurers here. Does not look like anything of interest. Rydo. Looks like it's some kind of Tetris game. $4.99. I'll give it a follow. AZY. Looks like an asset flip first person shooter that's also low polygon. Early access, bunch of languages, $8.99. Here we have a game called Golden Age, which is some kind of god game or city builder. It looks like it's a pretty blatant ripoff of Black and White, I believe, is the god game I'm thinking of. So I'm gonna say no to it. We have something called So Long As There's Mercy, which looks like a point and click, and I'm a sucker for point and click, so we'll put that on the follow list. Although, doesn't really need to be on the follow list. Really. Yeah, I don't know. Let's do this. Play this card. Special summon this. Sacrifice this. And activate this. And we'll draw one card. We could destroy a card too, but I don't think there's quite a need for that. Activate this. Attack here. And attack again. Yeah, because I streamed early on Friday, there was a lot of games left over the weekend, obviously. It came out over the weekend. Oh, if I want to just generically complain about something, this weekend was the beginning of a Lego sale, or a free gift with purchase, and boy, it was real tough to order anything from Lego this weekend. Like, almost everything on my wish list is sold out still, and ordering the max amount you're allowed to order of a set caused it to automatically come back and say, oh, you've ordered more than we allow. And I mean in the numbers of you ordered 2 copies of the set instead of, or you've ordered 3 instead of 2. They're like really limiting things down. So I really have to wonder if Lego is suffering because their website is bad, or if Lego is suffering because they've had shortages of some sort too. Or shipping problems. Like, theoretically, Lego makes all of its stuff in its own factories. I don't know if that's 100% true. I don't know if they make the boxes in their own factories. I don't know if they make the plastic pellets that you would need to start with to make Lego bricks from in their factories. I know their factories seem to be almost 100% automated, so they're not really paying or that many people to work and make these toys. But Yeah, it could be the printing of their manuals is done outside, the making of their plastic bags, which they're trying to move over to paper bags very slowly. That can be done outside. The boxes can be done outside. And they don't own the shipping lines, I'm sure. There isn't a Lego shipping container just full of Legos coming across the oceans. So they certainly could still have shortages. They also could be limited in just constantly needing to repair and replace the machines in their factories to make the Lego bricks. And if there's a broken circuit board inside a machine and they can't get the components to fix that, that would slow them down. No major corporation is an island. Everything relies on everything else. But to get back to video game news, since I'm just rambling there, we have a game called Hunter Haunt, which this is still early access, so I'm going to give it more. Well, it's not out yet. I almost thought this was on the fall list. No, I'm going to leave this because this is a 6 to 12 online player game, so it's not something I'd ever play. It's not a single player game. This game looks like nothing of interest. Project Kunai looks like nothing of interest, just a generic parkour game. I'm trying so hard to survive here and failing miserably. Let's see, Shooter's Island. Just looks like an asset flip shooter, so no to that. Below Rarity looks like garbage, so no to that. Hero or Foe looks like garbage, so no to that. Miyamoto S. There might be something here, so I'm gonna give this a follow. I suspect probably not. Actually, we're closer to being done than I thought we would have been. There still isn't really a lot of Gamatsu news, and seemingly there wasn't any GameDeveloper.com news at all. Although maybe my macro just broke. I also wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't any game developer news. I think we'd already talked about this from Gamatsu. HoloLive virtual YouTuber Minato Aqua game has been announced for consoles. I don't know this HoloLive streamer though. Evil Dead the game has been delayed to May 13th in order to deliver the best possible experience. I didn't even know there was an Evil Dead game coming out, although I may have heard in the announcement 2 or 3 times. It is a player versus player multiplayer game, so it's basically just the Friday the 13th the game concept again. Let's see, Elden Ring Exploring Castle Morn gameplay is available here. Game Informer. Yeah, I guess technically I do get copies of Game Informer. I think anybody can for free. But I certainly don't waste the time reading it. I am many years away from the idea of reading something like Nintendo Power and getting hyped on games through those kinds of advertisements. We may not be winning, but we're getting experience, and if we get really lucky and do win, one more win gets us the gold, and that's as much as I think I can hope for in this first season. Yeah, this Elden Ring feels very much like Dark Souls, except for the fact that it seems like there's no heads-up display being shown for this demo, and it seems like you're not having to have as precise movements. It seems like you can just swing a sword as they're attacking, and you're more than likely going to hit your target. Yeah. But Elden Ring definitely feels like it is still just doing the Dark Souls thing. If anything, perhaps Elden Ring is just an opportunity to get out from the narrative of Dark Souls. The bad advertisement around Dark Souls, the prepare to die, or this game is super hard advertisements. Seems like that's what they're probably implying when they say they expect more people to beat Elden Ring. But also, the Dark Souls storyline was too complicated of a storyline for that kind of game anyways, and I would have actually liked to have seen that Dark Souls storyline explained and wrapped up in more of a narrative cutscene way than I feel like it ever did. There might be some text elements written around that explain what happened and all that, but for the average player who's just not going to read that kind of stuff, it's you're left with not much of a narrative. Let's do this. Let's see. Gametsu has this week's Japanese game releases: Dying Light 2, Stay Human, The 100-Year Kingdom, and more. Let's see. What's interesting here is it's talking about Dying Light 2 being really the only physical and digital versions. But then there's a North American version and a European version also. So are the Japanese getting the North American version or the European version, or this PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 worldwide version? Digitally, there's a lot more being released, and they've kind of oddly picked this one game to talk about, perhaps because it's the most Japanese of the options. But all that really seems to be showing is that that there really isn't any game out there. There are very many games coming out. Alright, well, let's do this. Hmm. Yeah, I don't think that's helping me in any way by bringing that back. This 100-Year Kingdom game, some kind of turn-based tactics game, maybe some kind of like resource management game, but definitely does not look particularly interesting. Let's see, Yoshinori Katase and Tetsuya Nomura share messages for the Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary. 25 years. Quite a long time. The otome / young maiden visual novel called Dig Rock, documentary of youthful sounds, has been announced for Switch, which I assume that would have something to do with rock and roll. Doesn't look like much of anything. Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel Northern War anime is going to be produced by Tatsunoko production and has been delayed to early 2023. I don't know if I particularly care about an anime based on a video game. And here's some good news. Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater Remaster sales have topped 340,000, and Blue Reflection Second Light has topped 120,000. 340,000 I think is enough to justify remaking more of the Fatal Frame series and bringing them out and trying to build that niche audience even more. Blue Reflection selling only 120,000 arguably is a fairly small amount of numbers, but even that is a niche on top of a niche, I would say. So 120,000 might be good enough numbers to at least entertain the concept. I could have special summoned this, I guess, a little bit earlier. And there was only one of these guys. Yeah, if I'd special summoned this a turn before, I may have been able to destroy the one character and do more damage, which may have actually won. Yep. Blue Reflection being just like Japanese schoolgirls going into a virtual reality, fighting in an RPG fantasy world, has several niches on top of them, whereas Fatal Frame is just Japanese horror with a gimmick of you take pictures of the ghosts, and the main character is usually an anime girl of some sort, which is less niche than you would think. A Gran Turismo 7 Special Edition State of Play has been set for February 2nd. And then the Final Fantasy VII 25th Anniversary logo has been revealed, if you really care about that. I still am getting fairly sleepy by the time I'm halfway through these streams, so I do kind of want to wrap up and call it a day. Here we have a game called Run Run Pinata, which is obviously just an infinite runner, so there's nothing there of interest. Here we have a game called Puzzle Box, which looks far too generic, so no to that. We have Gym Raider 2, which looks awful. So no to that. That's $5.99, pretty expensive also. Here we have a game called Zeitgeist, which might be something. The visuals here seem like they're a little bit too polished to dismiss it immediately. So we'll put that on the fall list. $4.99, English only. Yep, it looks like Zeitgeist here is a puzzle platforming game. Yep. Seems like there's some weird plant creatures you talk to, and you have these weird plants on your back. Yeah. This definitely looks like it might be something, even though it looks fairly weird. We have a game called Otter Quest, which doesn't look like anything. $4.99, English only. We have Naara, I assume is how you would pronounce that. Pontos de Resistencia. Some Brazilian character. I guess the question is there going to be a real game here? This does definitely catch my attention. I'm always interested in seeing different cultures' histories or myths told. Of course, you run into a problem here where this is Portuguese Brazil only. So, early access English is not supported. I'll put it on the fall list, but it's probably a waste of time. Yeah, there's very much a chance that they have no interest in adding more languages later. Can you even promise that to add more languages later in the description? You probably can, because at the end of this description it says the other 7 levels will be announced during the course of development. So yeah, I'm really bending over backwards to keep that on the fall list when I really shouldn't. We have a visual novel called Winter with You, which seems like it's nothing. Large cleavage breasted anime girls, like their heads very big, their arms and hands very small, cleavage very big. Seems a little off-putting in the art style. And yeah, it doesn't look visually polished particularly well anyways. This is English and Russian, $2.79. It's also too cheap for any visual novel that would actually be good. Here we have a game called Skeleton Zone Traveler Emergence, which looks like a 90s throwback game, first-person shooter. Not something I would want to play because it also looks awful. Here we have one that's all Asian characters. So it would be Korean, Chinese, or Japanese would be the ones to guess, and I would tend to lean towards... I'm gonna go with Korean. Let's see, $3.99. Nope, Chinese. Full audio. But it doesn't support English, so it's still a no. We have a game called Conveyance, which kind of looks like you're building a circuitry device, but I don't think you really are, because these little blocks don't seem like integrated circuits or anything like that. So it's more just a conveyor belt automation game, and there are better looking versions of that type of game. This is $10.99 English only. Here we have something called Broken, which says it's a puzzle VR game. Could be a walking simulator. Early access. They're comparing it to Abduction, which in all fairness, Abduction is also a puzzle game that could easily be mistaken for a walking simulator, and almost is a walking simulator. $10.79 English, allegedly full audio. Put this on the follow list. See if it comes out of early access. Here we have a game called Marimo versus IAS, which looks like it's some kind of troll asset flip game. It definitely looks like it's just nonsense. $13.99 English and Japanese. We have a game called Overwall, which for some reason has decided to not render correctly. This looks like one of those player versus player games. Free to play, split screen co-op. Yep. No single player, so that's going to be a no. Okay. We need, I guess, to play this and target, run the ritual monster you control, show it to your hand. No, we don't want to activate anything. Here we have a game called YTBB, which looks like probably nothing and doesn't seem to support English. Chinese only, free. Seems like it's some kind of monster on a toilet, and you may just be playing as a poop. I think that may very well be what you're playing as. Which you'd have to make a game pretty funny for that to last as a gimmick. Here we have a game called Leningrad, which looks like it's almost 100% story text-based. 59 cents English and Russian, no to that. We have Kilroy was here, which that's like a really old saying from 40 or 50 years ago that I'm not sure I ever understood the meaning of it. I'm not sure most people understood the meaning of it. Like sometimes these esoteric, if that's the right word to use, sayings from the past really had very little meaning behind them, or the meaning was lost. At least lost to me. So ignoring that though, Kilroy is here looks just like an asset flip game of no interest. Free, English only. We have what definitely looks like a troll visual novel here of furries again. $9.99 English only, that's going to be a no. Then we have a racing game that looks very generic, so that's going to be a no also. And then we have a platformer of no interest, so that's going to be a no. Kind of amazing how much of this stuff how many of these games we can just say no to immediately and reject, and that's always been the case, but I've just gotten so good at it. Although at a certain level, you take that logical step one step further, you could say, why bother looking at any of these games at all? The state of games being released on Steam only has a very slight connection to the state of games being released everywhere else, which only has a slight connection to the state of games being released that people care about. There is still a small connection there, and maybe more people should care, and we always are looking for diamonds in the rough. It's just there is a lot of rough. Speaking of rough, we have Village RPG here, which looks like a mobile phone game. It actually doesn't look rough or that bad. I was just trying to be funny transitioning. $14.99 single player only, which is funny that you describe something as having a PvE arena when it is a single player only game. Anyways, here we have a game on Steam called Boom Wars, which is just a Bomberman clone, or 24 English only. We have 5 more tabs really to look at as far as games that have come out, but I think I want to try and run my macro the second time just to be certain. And we have a game called Spirit of the Light, which there might be something here, but I suspect no. Suspect it's more just an asset flip thing. I'm gonna give this a follow though. Give it a chance. Give myself another chance to once again maybe get a victory. Here we have a game on Steam called Spaceship Hunters, which looks like nothing. Here we have a game called Ghost, which looks like an asset flip horror game. Although, maybe not. Nope, it is just an asset flip horror game from what I can tell. $13.99 English and Russian. Here we have a game called Jump Lines, which looks like nothing of interest. $11.24 English. And then we have a game called Peepo, which looks like it's a side-scrolling shooter game with a very odd kind of black and white with splotches of bright color concept, which there is something to that that might be interesting, but it also might just be annoying visually or annoyingly difficult in its gameplay mechanic. So I'm going to put that on the follow list. And with that, that does set me up to cover just a couple of things more, and then we're basically done today. Let's see. Hollywood Reporter says the X-Men scribe David Hayter has boarded the TV adaptation of EA's American McGee's Alice game. This is an exclusive. Now, American McGee, as I sometimes watch his live streams for brief moments, had said specifically that he was told to give a statement on this big announcement, and it didn't have anything to do with video games per se, so they weren't like remaking the first American McGee Alice or Alice Madness Returns, or they weren't greenlighting a American McGee's Alice 3, even though they are in a pre-production state and kind of just forever trapped in this pre-production state of thinking about maybe making an Alice 3. EA owning the rights to it, and arguably not really caring to make another Alice, has painted American McGee and his I think it's called Spicy Horse company into a corner where they can tease like they're working on a third game and sell a bunch of merchandise, pretending like they're making a third game, but they aren't actually actively working on making a third game. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if EA decided to make a third game and maybe take some of the concepts from American McGee and Spicy Horse, but not actually have them program the game or have any real hand in it. Because they've been kind of, American McGee in particular, has been kind of out of the loop as far as programming things for a long time. I don't know specifically how you take this and turn it into a TV adaptation in the same way I don't know how you would do that with Halo. It feels like you would tell a mini-series, a very dark mini-series on something like HBO Max. Like now would be the time where we might start to see more projects getting greenlit for streaming, direct-to-streaming concepts. I doubt this is going to air on regular TV. Like Fox would be the closest thing. And at a certain level, unless you just want the name, which is probably what they do want, you could tell a very similar story of what is told as far as American McGee's Alice without having to really license it from EA. There are things specifically done with the Americans McGee's Alice to not make her have the elements of the Alice shown in the Disney movie Alice. Like specifically, she has black hair and is kind of more goth in her appearance, whereas Alice in the Disney Alice is blonde. She's taller, kind of older looking, has the big blade. Is it called the Bandersnatch blade, or I forget what it was called. Special named blade that actually is mentioned in the original Alice in Wonderland series of books. She's covered in blood. She's got these alchemical symbols on her outfit as shown here, and an omega symbol. One thing that American McGee is saying about the third game, if it ever gets made, is that it will wrap up most of the storyline and make a kind of complete trilogy over those 3 games, which would have been released over a very long time, and then start a whole potential narrative for more sequels. But yeah, if I was going to make a TV series based on the Alice in Wonderland story, I would look at like every chapter or every character in the books and just try to make an episode somewhat around each of those characters as best as you could, and then that miniseries would have to end once there was just no more interesting content that you could take out of the book series. What American McGee's Alice first game is about is it is mostly a 3D platformer. There's no good way to translate a 3D platformer to a TV series. So almost certainly all that 3D platforming is going to mostly be removed. You may see the character jump every now and then in an action scene, but I suspect there won't be too many action scenes anyways. And then the only other gameplay mechanic besides solving some box pushing puzzles would be the hacking and slashing of weapons in the first game. And you really can't have that too much of that. The same is true for the Halo TV series. Is you really can't have every episode have a scene where Master Chief is going to just mow down 100 enemies. Let's see if this works. I don't think it will. But I am certainly interested in the thought there of trying to make American McGee's Alice work as a TV series. Even though I have absolutely no faith in it. I guess we don't really need to talk about this article. Your Gamer saying Team 17 announces environmentally friendly Worms NFTs. The update here now is many staff not told of the NFT project before the announcement today. Your Gamer understands. I don't use Your Gamer as a news source very often because they're a pain in the butt. And I can't actually blame people for not telling every single employee about an announcement. Like, that's fairly common. So, reporting on that is fairly disingenuous. I really don't have a good reason to talk about G4 TV, but I will just point out they are still reviewing old games like Shadow of the Colossus, and here's a tweet from 22 hours ago saying another please, which there was another Shadow of the Colossus style game or two. So that seems kind of just silly. But yeah, they're really not on X-Play covering new games because there aren't any new games, and they're oddly covering a lot of old games to kind of just justify their own existence, I would say. And I guess I can't really blame them either. It's like, if you got hired by some production company to bring back G4, and then all of a sudden there's just no new games to review, you gotta find something to do to make it look like you're worth your paycheck. If anything, maybe they should have just been better at branding and saying directly that they're covering old games in the middle of this drought, and they should be potentially reviewing the games from a nostalgia retrospective perspective instead of reviewing them as if in a way that implies they just came out when everybody knows they didn't just come out. I'm not getting a lot of lucky breaks and free victories here in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, but I will say I am still new and fresh enough to playing this game that I'm not at a point where I'm getting irritated with my losses either. Perhaps that's because even when I lose, I'm still making progress towards victory rewards. And maybe some of that will dry up or not matter in the longer run. But yeah. if the battle pass gets to 100 and I'm still losing, if I get to this point and I'm still not getting rewards, and if I maxed out this level and I'm still not getting rewards, then at that point losing probably would suck a lot more. This is a weird story from IGN. The Witcher's Gwent is getting a new single-player standalone game later this year. It's called Project Golden Necker, which I guess would be a standalone expansion. But there already was one standalone expansion of Gwent, and the way they advertised it and the way they kind of sold it sucked. And Gwent, although it had a small chance of potentially being a major player in the collectible card game world, it kind of failed. I don't know how many expansions as far as cards ever came out. I'm not sure if any expansions as far as cards ever came out. And I don't feel like there was a big change. Wow, 57 new tweets on my Twitter feed. Well, 57 tweets, and apparently some of those are going to have to do with the fact that Sony is going to attempt to acquire Bungie for $3.6 billion, which is far below acquiring all of Activision Blizzard. For nearly $69 billion, but I guess the question is how many people are still playing Destiny 2, because that's about all Bungie is these days. I can't even remember what Destiny replaced. I think Bungie was making the Halo games before. Let's see. YouTube Betty is asking, do you batch record your YouTube videos? You would pretty much have to, unless you're live streaming always. And the first solo mode episode aired 14 minutes ago for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel on my channel. So hopefully that'll get me more views and push more. It's just funny that the leaving guy in charge of YouTube Gaming is shouting out Valkyrie, which honestly, it seems like he didn't really shout out anybody else, so I half suspect he might have had an affair with her or have some special relationship that he would want to shout out one specific gaming YouTuber and not shout out just a whole bunch of them. The smart way to do that certainly is, if you want to shout out your friends, is create a list of your friends and then create a list of people who are not particularly friends but not mortal enemies either of those friends, and then it looks like you're just shouting out a random selection of streamers. Plus you could have also you could also just shout out like the top 100 streamers too, instead of one specific person. Or they could have been in the habit of shouting out gaming streamers every single day, just one person that they would pick almost at random. Let's see. Still scrolling down here. Yeah, we may be getting back to finally that point where we're going to have a fairly massive amount of news on weekdays. And I may get back to doing 3.5, 4 hour live streams, whether I want to or not. Still yawning. Joe's still very close to falling asleep. Let's play. Does this guy have to destroy something, or can he not destroy something? Oh, so he literally has to destroy something. So summoning that guy and wasting a ritual spell was really dumb. See. So we have a variety article here. It Takes Two developer Hazelight Studios teams up with DJ2 Entertainment to adapt the game for film, which I'm not sure people particularly loved the story of It Takes Two enough that but at the very least that going to film instead of TV makes more sense. It definitely seems more doable. Why did this? Let's go ahead and play this. This will probably be our last game, but maybe not. Activate effect. PlayStation Now adds Grand Theft Auto Vice City Definitive Edition, Death Squad, and more in February. This is just a standard Gematsu article. We had already talked about that. Alana Pierce is going to be the GDC 2022 host. She's a video game writer and content creator. I recognize her name, but I don't recognize if, like, there is anything big or controversy around her. So I'll just have to leave it at that. And then here we have the Bungie story. Bungie joins Sony Interactive Entertainment. They put out a big article here. In a funny way, I would say Bungie has either been pushed or run out the door as far as the relationship with Microsoft and Xbox, as far as making Halo games. They also put out this Destiny 2 Our Shared Vision concept, which I think they will probably have to make Destiny 2 content and support Destiny 2 for a while, at least until they can possibly decide to make something new. Oh, actually, this is a different article. This is Video Games Chronicle take on it. Let's see. This is probably the trailer for, like, Madness Returns. I mean, you have to realize that, like, there is a lot of danger around the American McGee story that's being told. Like, American McGee himself seemingly, I think maybe later in life, realized that he was abused as a child, or knew it the whole time. He was working through a lot of stuff, is what I've heard him say while releasing these games, and that is created in Madness Return in particular a narrative that subtly hints at Alice being abused as a child and being crazy, both, like, one would assume physically and emotionally and verbally and sexually. So yeah, it is a very dark story, and I am not pro censorship or anything like that, so I'm not saying these stories shouldn't be told, but I am saying is that they are going to have to definitely be willing to support this TV series when it inevitably is going to have to go in dark directions. In all fairness, even the original Alice in Wonderland books, I think, have hints and overtones of darkness and abuse, and certainly there's implications of the writer of Alice in Wonderland actually grooming his friends' kids, who of which he wrote the Alice books, based the Alice character on. It definitely comes off that way to a modern perspective. Maybe it was 100% innocent. We will probably never know. But yeah. I recently heard that fables are stories that have to have a moral, otherwise it's not considered a fable, which is an interesting take on the Fable game, which doesn't particularly have a moral to the story. If you don't want it to, at least you don't. It doesn't have to. And so I wouldn't immediately assume that the Alice in Wonderland stories are fables, because I don't know if they really have morals, or if they do have morals, that they would be morals that anybody cared about. Like, I don't know if they'd be morals that people would agree with in modern times. Seems like my Steam fall list macro may be broken here too, because it's searching too far. Whatever. We will do this the old-fashioned way then. Of course, right now I've got the screen blocked, so I'm not playing because of that. Guess we could try and minimize that. And I can't do anything, so we'll just end the turn anyways. I think I'm running into kind of constant problems here, though, because the macro didn't run all the way through. That maybe it didn't save any of the CVS stuff. It should have. Each of these individual code snippets should run on their own and save where they were. Come on, hurry up. Okay, one more code snippet to run. Okay. Let's return to the menu. May play a little bit off screen here. We have a few more hours before the season seems to end. And as far as missions, we now have login day 1 of 28, which means these login rewards will just keep on going. Although it seems like they may kind of stop. Nope, you get a login reward for every single day. And we have another spectate duel live, activate a spell in ranked, win a duel in ranked, which some of these are like 27 days left. As far as dailies, that seems really weird. This one, I barely had. Well, I guess you have a receiving deadline of 27 days, which that seems kind of odd to limit it like that, but whatever. What else did we accomplish? We destroyed some monsters on the field for another 50 gems. We special summoned monsters for another 50 gems. And we increased our duelist level. Still a lot of work, certainly. Weird to have daily quests though that would last 27 days, but whatever. A lot of work as far as solo. I will also want to look at like the about transfers here. Need to create a Konami ID. The sale on gems is still available. Looks like there might be a new structured deck. Let's see. Doesn't seem like it though. I have 39 of these, and yet when I can't come back here, it says 10 packs, 10 tickets, almost as if at some point that might get discounted, which I wouldn't really expect it to. Yeah, there's nothing new in the shop. You'd almost assume there would be an exclamation point if there was. So this new structured deck starting January 18th going forever seems to just be an odd new advertisement for old content. We just are really far along now. But you're not really getting a ton of stuff either. Yeah. I could open 40 packs right now easily, but then I may never be able to open another set of 10 packs again after that. Let's see. So now I'm going through the news that since I ran the macro, or somewhat ran the macro again. Sony's MLB game will hit Xbox Game Pass on day one for a second year in a row. This is, I guess, the show 2022 or 22. And then Video Games Chronicle has the article here. Sony is buying Destiny creator Bungie for $3.6 billion. Arguably, Destiny as a game as service was a herald of the concept of games as services and did everything that it could to make video games in general worse. If you could if you were trying to eliminate the concept of games as services in the video game history, you would get rid of Destiny, almost certainly. And Destiny 1 was supposed to be supported forever, and they couldn't do that, so then they go into Destiny 2, and frankly, they probably are at the point where they would need to go to Destiny 3. Square Enix apparently hopes to share more Final Fantasy VII Remake news in 2022. This is a Gamatsu article. And the Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis opening movie clip is apparently available to see. Is this an actual anime or a JRPG? Looks like it's a smartphone JRPG game. I don't want to watch all of this, but Seems like they're in military armor, flying on an airplane or a helicopter. Like, what part of that is really even Final Fantasy at that point? Like, that just seems like that's set in the real world. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands details Graveborn and Spore Warden classes, the multi-class system, and more. Check out that Gamatsu article if you're interested. Tales of Arise has its introduction animation if you're interested in that. We already talked about the PlayStation Now editions and the MLB show coming out for basically everything. And then we already talked about It Takes Two to be adapted to film, for film and television. Interesting, film and television. So they're gonna make a TV series. Here it says film or television. That's confusing. How could you make a TV series and a movie out at the same time? Game developer has the GDC Narrative Summit poster winners, if you're interested in that. And then game developer says Team 17 announces Worms NFTs, but stops short of adding play to earn mechanics, which that is a weird way to soften the negative response there, to say, oh, but you can't play to earn the NFTs, as if that's better. And then we had already looked at this game and 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 this game. So what came out in the last 2 hours and 45 minutes was Silo 27 Crashland, which we can say no to. And then here we have a probably Japanese or Chinese only game of really no interest. Chinese only, $7.99, so no to that. Then a game called Don't Push Me that looks bad or uninteresting to me. $3.99 English, allegedly full audio, so no to that. We have a game called Exoblast, which is half shoot 'em up an arcade game, it says. Honestly, it looks more just like a Pong game or an attempt at making a new Pong air hockey game. I don't think the table is particularly big enough for this concept, for as big as that puck is. But you know what? I'm going to put this on the fall list. It's a free game with some skins for $10, and it's already rated very positively. So I'll think about it. It probably is a multiplayer focused game. Come to think of it, though, I bet there's no story here. Yeah, I suspect there probably isn't a lot of story here. So I think I'd have to say no and take that off the fall list. Here we have a game called Riding Seas, which looks like it's a boat racing game, which that's somewhat unique. My throat's drying out at this point. Put that on a fall list. We have 3 more tabs. Solar Gene looks uninteresting. $16.19, bunch of languages. That's still gonna be a no. I don't think I've walked this stretch of road before. Looks far too polygonal. $3.99 English only. And finally we have Mysteries of Darkness, which just looks like it's a card-based game, although there might be something more to it than that. It's early access, English and French, $4.99. I'll give it a follow. Alright, well, and that's good enough for me. I think we've covered all the news. There almost certainly will be more news. Hopefully we don't have a case where now there's just going to be a ton more speculation about what is Sony going to acquire next, or what is Bungie going to do if once it gets acquired. Just asking questions that obviously won't have an answer in the first hour of an announcement. It was incredibly tiring to have so much talk and speculation around the Activision Blizzard acquisition announcement. Like, you might speculate that maybe Microsoft has been acquiring businesses to just counter the fact that they already knew Bungie was potentially going to be acquired by Sony, and maybe some other companies, and it was just a preemptive strike. But I think this is really just more of a case of, like, everybody with any money is going to try and acquire anybody that doesn't have any money. And hopefully we can just leave these as strictly factual statements as much as possible, so that we can wait to see if these acquisitions actually go through, get approved, and then we can start to see what happens there. I would say I would heavily doubt that if Sony Interactive Entertainment was being run by the Sony of Japan departments and people, they almost certainly would have never considered acquiring a Western company like Bungie. And that this may be another nail in the coffin of what old Sony was, and we may have a very different Sony that starts to focus more on releasing games like Bungie and less games like Final Fantasy or Japanese-centric games. That is maybe a possibility, but maybe not. Anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.